friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 372XP chainsaw. Customer complaint is that he dropped it and busted it up a little bit. Looks like that top cover's got a tear in it. The clutch cover's got a big hole in it. And the throttle grip handle is all busted up. Doesn't look like there's any damage to the clutch drum or the clutch itself. We're going to plan on replacing the fuel tank and these couple other parts, and I'll show you how I go about doing that. What are we doing? Just kind of looking around. I might have been having a conversation with somebody else in the shop there. So the first thing I'm going to do is start taking these anti-vibe mounts off. There's the front spring. Here we're going to loosen the screws for the wrap handle. I should say front handle. It's not a wrap handle unless it goes all the way around the saw. There's another anti-vibe screw. That spring goes into the cylinder. And these two screws go into the fuel tank. So I'm kind of separating the screws. The ones that go into the plastic are coarse thread. The ones that go into the anti-vibe springs, some can be fine thread, some are coarse thread. You just got to pay attention to them. But this screw right here, this is a special screw. It's kind of got a, I don't know, it's bald on the end. It's more like a pin on the end. It's not threaded all the way. And it's a locating pin. You kind of keep that one separate or pay attention to where it is. And then this last anti-vibe screw. Now the fuel tank is completely loose from the power head. And we just got to rock it the right way to sneak it out of there. There we go. So we're going to have a tank vent and a fuel line and a throttle cable and some wires going to the stop switch. Those have to be disconnected from the tank yet. We're going to take the cylinder cover off of here, get it out of our way. Well, there we go. Got it out of our way. Now we can work on this thing. I'm going to blow a little bit of schmutz out of here. Kind of try and keep things clean while we're moving along. So there's our throttle wire. We took it off of the carburetor. There's our boot that goes over the adjusting screws. Removing the throttle cable from its holder. Nothing like dropping a brand new part on the ground, huh? So there's the throttle cable. Pull that out of the way. Pop the wires off the back of the kill switch. And then you'll see we have to transfer some of these parts over to the new tank. 2 anti-vibe springs and a kill switch have to move over. Otherwise the tank comes with the fuel lines and the throttle cable. So removing these springs can be a challenge because it's a spring, right? This is the official tool from Husqvarna for removing them. There's little bent tabs on the end that catch the end of the spring. And you can just unwind it from this threaded post on the tank. The tool works pretty good. If you just try and grab the end of the spring and twist it, it naturally tightens up and it's going to want to bind on that post. So this tool actually grabs the end of the spring and twists it off. It works really good. So our cap, we got to salvage that as well. I forgot about the cap. Here's our stop switch. If we push the tabs on the back side of the switch, we can just push it right out of the tank. Pop it into the new one. Pretty simple stuff there. So let's put these springs back on the new tank. And you get them twisted on pretty close. But you're going to have to crank them all the way down so the end of the spring hits the stop on the tank. Now in this case, when you're twisting it back on, I've got another tool. This one I made myself. It's just a piece of conduit with a couple of tabs that grabs the end of the spring and kind of gives you a handle for twisting that spring in there. And you just turn it till it stops, basically, when the end of the spring hits that stop on the tank. We got the one in the front as well. You can see there's the stop on the threaded knob. We twist the spring in. You can't quite get it all the way by hand. And you know, the thing with homemade tools is they're wonderful when they work. And when they don't work, well, they're not so wonderful. So in this case, we're just going to twist it in with pliers. Turn it till it hits the stop, and that's it. Anti-vibes are on there. So when we want to mate this tank back up to the power head, we have to feed the fuel lines and a throttle cable through first. So there's a rubber grommet or a hole, depending on which piece it is. And we just kind of feed them up through the bottom of that carb tray. Right now I'm pushing the wires on the back of the stop switch. And it's taken me uncomfortably long time to do this. I'm not sure why. Not a lot of room to work, and there's not a lot of extra length on them wires. And I was trying to use that tool to push them on, but it turns out there was enough room for my fat finger in there just to push it on. That was a lot easier. So we've got our main fuel line and our tank vent line. Both have to be pushed up through the bottom. And these lines are cut on a taper, at least this vent is. So they'll feed through that hole in the bottom real easy. Now, once we have both the lines pushed through and the throttle cables through, then we'll get this tank line back up. And to keep it in place, we're going to find that one special screw that is more of a pin. We'll get that threaded in there. And now the tank's not going to fall apart on you. You can do whatever step you want next. In this case, I'm going to keep moving with attaching the tank and put that anti-vibe spring on there. We got that snug down nice. Alright, so we have fuel lines and a tank vent line. The tank vent just gets pushed down onto a pin in that tray. It gives it a place to breathe if it's outside of the general debris under their carb tray there. And then we have the fuel line. And I couldn't quite push it on the carburetor decent, so we're just relaxing it a little bit with this modified stamp ring pliers. It's on there nice and tight. Here's our throttle cable. We're putting it in the throttle cable holder on the side of the carb. And then putting the end of the cable on the linkage of the carb. Looks like it works pretty decent. Now, one thing I want to say about that throttle cable, before you install the tank underneath the power head, make sure that the throttle cable is properly attached in the trigger lever here. Otherwise you'll be taking this all back apart to reattach it. You can see how the cable fits in this little slot in the trigger holder. That can pop out of there in shipping, or just while you're handling it before you put things together. So make sure that the trigger end of the cable is assembled properly before you install the tank under the power head. Just kind of doing a check here what I got left to attach. Here's the dust boot that goes over the adjustment screws. It kind of pushes over the screws, and then there's a little button on the bottom that gets hooked on to a peg that's on the chassis. Little function check. Our throttle works, our choke works properly, our fuel lines are on. We're good with that. Our last I take it back, it's not our last. Our second anti-vibe spring is getting attached. Make sure that's good and snug. We'll flush cut the fuel line and then put a new fuel filter on it. Looks good. It's a brand new tank. It shouldn't leak, you know, unless you drop it on the floor, then I suppose there's a possibility of cracking it. So after we put the fuel in, we look real close to make sure nothing's going on. And we got lucky when I dropped it, nothing happened to it. It's fine. Our front handle has to go on. You know, it's a simple job. There's only 5 screws. But if you're trying to film this, it's kind of awkward. Kind of a clumsy job. And that screw just didn't want to bite the way it should. So the rest of the screws here are all going into the new fuel tank, and they're cutting new threads as they go in. So we're going to crank up the bit driver a little bit. Crank them in there. Fumbly. There we go. Doesn't look like we're having any problems with the fuel tank leaking. We lost one screw though, that's kind of a bummer. I just about had it right there. I don't know why he can't see it. I can almost see it. There it is. Alright, so we got our handle attached. We're going to just kind of do a final torque there with the proper T-handle tool. Get all 4 of them snugged down. And then go back to that first anti-vibe one that I was working on. Get that torqued down by hand. Okay, so our cylinder cover can go back on. I mean, it goes on there decent. It can be a little bit funny putting these on, no big deal. These 3 screws, make sure they're decent, snug down good. Spark plug wire's got a little kind of a home that it clips into. Our air filter looks good. We'll throw that back on. And we got a new air filter cover. Nice and shiny. We'll throw that back on. Here's our new clutch cover. I'll get around to that. I think I got to get a different bar and chain for this guy. So I'm going to clean up some tools here, and then I'm going to try and fire this thing up. And if it starts, then that's all I'm going to have for you on the Husqvarna 372XP that needed a new fuel tank. Thanks for watching. Later.